about water in California, which is important. But Debbie just got back from Paris, where they had the global warming, climate change, Agenda 21, 2030 plan for America stuff. So she's going to talk all about that. But Debbie just handed me this book. So where'd you get this book, Debbie? This is a kid's book.
Yeah, isn't it a great book? I got it on Amazon.com. You can get them for like 30 cents, by the way.
But it says it's a United Nations book.
Yes.
So in association with UNICEF, United Nations, UNESCO. These are all the United. On the back, it's this is the Secretary General. I sincerely hope that this book will help children from all countries better understand and appreciate the fragile world. There's a quote from Al Gore, the Nature Conservatory. All right, so this is legit. This isn't a self-published that some person put up with.
Oh,
this
no.
The UN did this.
It is a real live book.
Okay, so Debbie just she said, here, take this.
It was a gift for you.
I get to keep it.
Yes,
I'm going to read the whole darn thing because this is outrageous. She showed me just page 32 here called The Baby Bomb. Okay. So it's a kid's book. So there's pictures and it's all bright and colorful. Here's a quote. The planet groans every time it registers another birth. The giant picture on the other side is of God in the clouds with all these storks carrying babies. And God is like overwhelmed.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I can't, like he has this look on his face and he's covering his head like, oh no. And then the on the land, it's all these traffic is covering the bridge and there's a dump that's on fire and there's all these population, what do you call it? Like barrios basically, or whatever, like slums and all that stuff. And God is like, no, we can't have more people on this planet, which has been the purpose of the environmentalist movement for the last 40 years, which is to decrease the population of the earth because the earth is of the highest priority and people are a virus on it.
A blight, yeah.
Unreal. This is a kid's book.
Yeah, and somebody might be saying, big deal, it's a United Nations book. What does this have to do with the United States? Well, if you go back to the credits, you'll see that United States was involved. You'll say, well, not only was Al Gore involved in this document, in this book, but also there are Girl Scouts of America was involved with this book. Peace Child Recovery, or a Peace Child of Santa Cruz, Peace Child of New York. So all these different groups that were involved in this. So this absolutely does. So the United States did contribute to this book.
Oh, and it's going to be filtered down through the school districts and the textbooks and all that stuff. I mean, that's what this is.
Yeah, I mean, it even goes into vaccines and how all on page 39, you can see that it's a child and it's being vaccinated, and it says that by the year 2000, UNICEF wanted over 90% of children vaccinated. So, this book is not about freedom. It's not about what the United States stands for. It's about indoctrinating the children into a future called sustainable development.
It's unreal. Every page is propaganda talking point about but like to a crazy degree. Wow. This is wild. All right. Thanks for sending this to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to look over that later. So what did you learn from your time in Paris?
What did I learn? Well, I learned that all nations are going along with this. They have to. It's called the 2030 Agenda. And Obama signed back in September 25th in the United States. Remember when she was here? Putin was here. The Pope was here. Mm-hmm. Remember, he was talking about the environment and how we have, destroyed it and we need to be lighter on the earth. Well, all of those global leaders were here in the United States, in New York, for a reason. They were coming up with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals after January 1, 2016. Mm-hmm. What did they all agree to? The 2030 Agenda. So your audience, your listeners can go right now to the 2030 Agenda fact sheet from the White House and see that they even quote that we are going along with the United Nations Sustainable Development. Okay. So what happened in Paris was the setup. I'm
there right now, by the way. So this is not a conspiracy theory stuff. I'm on whitehouse.gov.
Yeah.
U.S. Global Development Policy and Agenda 2030. So the White House, this is the White House website. So continue. Sorry to cut you off.
And it says, no, great. It says 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Okay. Well, what's sustainable development? Sustainable development is the United Nations. It's what the United Nations came up with, the blueprint, the plan for the 21st century. And so what they were doing in Paris was setting up the climate change argument. that, oh my gosh, we as a community need to reduce the world's temperature by 2 degrees.
Yeah.
We need to agree to that or stabilize it. They came up with within 1.5 degrees. This is what they agreed upon. With 1.5 degrees, we need to stabilize the world's temperature. How do you do that?
Yeah.
Through sustainable development practices.
Which affects us how?
Every way. It affects how what your breathing, for example, impacts the environment. I have President Clinton created an executive order in 1994, right after he got his, or 1993 got his presidency, and he created the President's Council on Sustainable Development.
Okay.
And here's what they say about executing sustainable development. The execution will require profound reorientation of all human society, unlike anything the world has ever experienced, a major shift in the priorities of both governments and individuals, and an unprecedented redeployment of human and financial resources. This is where I want you to listen like really closely. This shift will demand that a concern for the environmental consequences of every human action. Mike, you're breathing right now. That is a human action. So this shift will demand that a concern for the environmental consequences of every human action be integrated into individual and collective decision-making level at every single level. Does that make so? That means everything you do in the 21st century has an environmental impact according to sustainable development.
Well, to go back to the baby bomb, having kids. Being alive,
huge
being
carbon
alive
footprint
is bad for the environment.
Huge, because all the natural resources that are your clothing, your food, the water, your smartphone. We've talked about, because I'm a cattle rancher, we've talked about all the byproducts that come from cattle. Everything in this studio has been touched by cattle at one point.
How's your smartphone?
You're smart because the lubricants that are used to smooth out parts, computer parts, are lubricants like lubricants that are used to run your car. Those are livestock byproducts like stearic acid. The lubricants in an airplane, when it puts down its retractable wheels. That's lubricant used with by livestock or coming from livestock. And so what the Paris Conference was all about is changing people's behavior, our everyday behavior, based on the idea that we human beings are so, like you said earlier, and I said blight and you said something else, but virus, that we are such a disease on this planet, this fragile planet, that they must monitor, control, and surveil every human action, not only at an individual level, but at a collective decision-making level.
Amazing. Now, Debbie, I hate we got to run. I'm sorry. But you're going to be at the Ramona Tea Party. Real quick on this point, I remember this conference going on, and China and India and the major polluters in the world, they didn't sign on to any of this stuff because they don't want to. So they made up some phony baloney stuff about how they want to or they're going to or whatever. But really, it's going to affect America the most, right? Because we're the ones who are going to take the lead. And then in our taking the lead by going backwards, we're going to be hurting the rest of the world.
Well, sure. And Obama told that to us in his 2014 State of the Union. He said that we would be the international leader when it comes to climate change. And if I can say one last thing to everyone, besides come on Saturday, come tomorrow, come check us out. I've got all these documents. We are heading towards some very scary times. China signed on to this 2030 agenda. What it's going to do is limit all of our human ability to create things. I think we are heading towards very scary times under this whole. I'm going to talk about technocracy tomorrow. Hardly anybody has heard of technocracy. It is going to be a new system of, and there's plenty of documents on this too, but a new economic resource system where everything's going to be based on kind of like a cap and trade scheme kind of thing. But here's what I want people to know. We are heading to, in my opinion, to some unprecedented times. Now is the time to make as much money, save as much as you can, do as much as you can, because I think in the next 10 years, we are going to start seeing more and more things that we consider freedom and liberty slipping from our hands.
And prosperity. It's self-inflicted poverty, to say the least. Debbie, you're awesome. Can you come back Monday?
I'd love to.
Let's spend an hour if you got some time.
Oh, I'd love to.
Because Debbie's going to be at Ramona tomorrow, and then you also told me that you just got invited to participate in a debate with some global warming people.
Yes.
So that's on Tuesday. So you're going to be sticking around a couple more days, which is awesome. So we'll talk more about that on Monday. But tomorrow, Debbie, right here, Ramona main stage. Doors open at 11. Starts at noon. Totally free. They always fill up. Debbie's going to be awesome. You're going to learn a lot, and it'll freak you out. But it's happening, so please go. Ramona main stage tomorrow. Program starts at noon. Debbie, you're awesome.
Thank
Good luck,
you. You
and
too.
We'll see you again on Monday, definitely.
You bet.
World, San Diego's America's finest city. Thank you for being here. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. Our next guest here, we talked to Debbie on Friday, just for like one segment. We said, well, this is no good. We must talk more. So the reason Debbie's in town, she's from Northern California, way Northern California, as northern as you get in California, right?
Well, our ranch is.
Yeah.
Just about 40 minutes away from the Oregon border.
Nice. So, but she's down in town because on Saturday she spoke at the Ramona Tea Party about what we're going to talk about here. How was Ramona Tea Party? I love the Ramona Tea Party.
So amazing. The room was packed. People were engaged. I have a book called Technocracy Rising that my friend Patrick Wood wrote, but we're teaming up because technocracy is really the issue we should be talking about. It's a bigger plan, and we'll talk about it later, I hope. But those books sold out in the first break, and oh my gosh, so cool. Fun. They're great people.
How long did you talk for?
I think the total was like an hour and 20 minutes or something
tremendous.
like that.
Good for you. That's great. An hour and 20. I couldn't get up there and talk for an hour and 20 minutes.
But when you start digging into all this stuff that's happening to freedom and liberty, and even here in San Diego, it's so easy to talk and keep talking because it's everywhere. Good for you.
Well, I'm glad you're doing it. So we talked to Debbie Bacigalupi, I don't know, maybe a year or so ago, about water. So she's a rancher from a family of ranchers, and the governor and the state are just going after her ranch and just the whole area up in Northern California. So can we take a couple minutes and just sort of refresh everyone on that, and then we'll move forward to the more of the big picture stuff. So you're on the Klamath River. What's the story here? What do they want to do to the river?
Yeah, we're in the Klamath Basin, but that's just as important as being on the Klamath River. The Klamath River is a large river system in Northern California. It actually goes down from Southern Oregon through Northern California and then goes out in the Eureka Crescent City area of, way northwest of California out to the ocean. It's an enormous river system. Well, back in the early 1900s, they decided that this would be a great river system to dam part of it because of the topography and put in hydroelectric dams. Nice. There's at least 4 on the Klamath River, and it's clean, green, renewable.
It's a clean energy, the cleanest energy, really. I mean, yeah.
And you can reuse the water over and over again, from recreation to irrigation to flood control, drought control, fire suppression, animals, ecosystem. This river, normally, if you talk to rancher Rex Cazalia, he would tell you he grew up on this river. He was there before the dams went in, and he's there now. He would tell you that the river would go dry and late in the summer and when we were going through drought years. Oh, by the way, California, we are a natural arid Mediterranean climate, which means we don't get a lot of rain. Droughts are normal in California. They are not abnormal, despite what Jerry Brown wants you to think. Yep. So this river system would go dry. And so the fish that they're trying to save, which you can buy at Whole Foods for $8.99 a pound, or you could go up to Alaska and find all these endangered coho salmon, you can buy those fish in a store. But so what they're saying is, based on science, actually, it's based on lies, but the government and radical environmental groups and even tribes are saying we have the science to prove that the coho salmon can't swim, all the way upstream like they used to. Well, people who live there would tell you they never could because of the topography. But at one point, government felt that human beings were important. And balancing. So where we put in a dam on the first dam, which is 187 miles up on the Klamath, we also put in a hatchery. And in that hatchery, we produce millions and millions of salmon per year. And when they go up to spawn, they know right where to go. They go back home, which is this hatchery. Well, if you remove the first dam, which is the highest, the Iron Gate, you're going to release, and then the series of dams after that, you're going to release over 20 million cubic yards of sediment. That's like 12,500 miles around the earth. So, and you're going to destroy all the fish